The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. At that time, Jesus came to a city of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. And so Jesus, tired as he was with his journey, sat down beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. There came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God, and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, and his sons and his cattle?" And Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I shall give will never thirst. The water that I shall give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." And the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may not thirst, nor have to come here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go and call your husband and come back here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and he whom you now have is not your husband. This you said truly." The woman said to him, "Sir, I can see that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For such the Father seeks to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called the Christ. When he comes, he will show us all things." Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you, I am he." Just then his disciples came. They marveled that he was talking with a woman. But none of them said, "What do you wish?" or "Why are you talking with her?" So the woman left her water jar and went away into the city and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" They went out of the city and were coming to Jesus. Meanwhile, the disciples begged Jesus, saying, "Rabbi, eat." But he said to them, "I have food to eat of which you do not know." So the disciples said to one another, "Has anyone brought him food?" Jesus said to them, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and accomplish his work. Do you not say there Are yet 4 months, then comes the harvest? I tell you, lift up your eyes and see how the fields are already white for harvest. He who reaps receives wages and gathers fruit for eternal life, so that sower and reaper may rejoice together. For here the saying holds true: one sows and another reaps. I sent you to reap that for which you did not labor. Others have labored, and you have entered into their labor. Now, many Samaritans from the city believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me all I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them, and he stayed with them 2 days. And many more believed because of his word. They said to the woman, "It is no longer because of your words that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this indeed is the Savior of the world." The gospel of the Lord. Lead questions for today. Question number 1. What is the one theme that runs through today's readings? Question 2. Compare and contrast. The water Moses gave in the desert, as we heard in the first reading, and the water which Jesus gives today. Compare and contrast. Question 3. For St. Paul, God's love in Christ is pure love, one not determined by the goodness of the beloved. Much of our love is determined by the goodness of the beloved. If the beloved is good, he or she gets more love. If he misbehaves, we withdraw our love. How does this challenge our own claim to be in love? So good, so good, so good. Loving somebody, somebody loves you back. Our own concept of love is that if I love somebody, the person must love me. Actually, should love me more than I love him. How does the love of God that is not determined by the goodness of the beloved, how does it challenge our own claim to be in love? If you analyze the thing very seriously, it may turn out that all our claims to be in love now are you. Question 4. After encountering Jesus, the Samaritan woman became not only a disciple of Jesus, but also a missionary. And you know what a missionary is? Going out to proclaim the good news. After meeting Jesus and recognizing that this is a Messiah, she ran. Jesus didn't send her. Did Jesus send her? She dropped all her life's engagement, what brought her to the well. She dropped them. She dropped her pot, water pot, and ran to the city to say, "Come and see. Could this be the Messiah?" She became a missionary. So I ask you pointedly, what part are you playing in evangelization if you claim that you have truly encountered Jesus? What part are you playing? This is Okwo.
I want to answer question 2.
Yes.
I will start with compare. The question is compare and contrast. The water Moses gave in the desert and the water which Jesus gives you today. Now, to compare, water is very important to existence, to life. So the two passages talks about the need to fulfill a need, the water. They both talked of water, which was a need and a very important need
Water
to
is life.
to existence.
Water is life. Water gives life. Okay.
Then coming to the contrast, the first reading talked about water as a physical thing. We hunger for physical, external things. Now, he's talking about water. The people wanted water, which was physical.
Our bodies are, doctor, our bodies are 70% water, is it? Our bodies are 70% water. So if we don't drink water, we will die.
So at that point, it was physical to the people. They desperately needed it or they may die. But the water which Jesus offers in the gospel is a spiritual one. It's the spiritual one that will lead us to eternal life. It's the water that we drink, that will give us insight into God, that will enable us born to God, that will enable us do the will of God.
Give us an idea of that. Where do we get that water from? Is it from water board?
The water comes from God, only God, and it's by our spiritual connection to Him.
Our
spiritual connection to Him.
Our spiritual connection with God, that is the water that gives eternal life. Give a round of applause. Bishe.
I'd like to attempt question 3. I think that it challenges my own claim to love in my relationships with people, family members, wife, my children, and anybody else with whom I interact, that I do not need them to give me a reciprocal love. I do not need to quantify what it is that they have done for me.
So it's not about 50-50 love.
No, it's not 50-50. Okay. That whatever it is and that they give to me, that I would be compassionate enough and forgiving enough in spite of it to still do what is expected of me, which is to love them and to care for them and to support them. And that's something that happens very often that I have found in my life. There are always situations where you think that you want to measure that, after all, this person has done this person has offended me in that way. So I should either reduce the amount of what I want to do for the person, or care or concern I want to show.
Because it doesn't deserve
because
that
the
much.
person doesn't deserve that much, having done something bad to me.
Right. So what is the new determination now?
Well, what I have learned over time and I am struggling to practice is to care less for what the person has done or failed to do, but to do what is right, what is expected of, which is to give the person the love in spite of what.
Let me moderate what you are saying. It's not just what is expected of me. When you become a Christian, you take on a new personality, not just as a duty, but as who you are. So if who you are is a loving person on account of your connection, using Mrs. Okwa's words, on account of your connection with God, if who you are is a loving person, so it's not about what another person does to you. You relate with people according to who you are. So if you are finding it difficult not to love people, that is who you are. Do you understand? Louis, is that not true? If you are finding it difficult not to love people who don't love you, that is who you are. It means you don't have it. So you need this living water we are talking about. We need this water of Christ we are talking about. And we need to look into ourselves. That question number 3 is meant for us to look into ourselves. What is the quality of our love, our claim to love? I call it claim to love. What is the quality? Because if we find it difficult, and I wanted to moderate this because I don't want it to be seen as a duty. I want it to be seen as self-expression. That's who you are. As we go out each day, from our waking moments to our sleeping moments, we express who we are. Right? Is it a duty for a rose to issue out sweet smell, fragrance, Is it duty? No. It is what? Natural. The rose cannot help but be rose. It can't help but issue that sweet fragrance. So if you are a Christian, you are connected with Christ and there is love in your heart, you won't be able to help it. It will come out of you. If you are finding it so difficult, your husband has offended you, you are finding it difficult to love him. Your wife has offended you, you are finding it difficult. Your child has offended you, you are finding it difficult. Then go on your knees and say, Lord, it looks like me, I've been claiming that I have love. Now I'm discovering that that place is empty. I beg, fill me with your... Give him a round of applause. The first reading from Exodus chapter 17 tells us that the chosen people of God were in the desert. They were tormented by thirst. They wanted water. They complained bitterly against God and his servant Moses. They were at the point of stoning Moses. Their thirst brought them to rebellion. Nothing was important to them anymore. They forgot what God did when he led them out of slavery. They forgot everything. All those miracles God did, they forgot. The people of Israel were confronted with a major challenge. Are we to trust in this God of Moses and risk dying of thirst? Or are we to take our destiny in our hands? Last Sunday I was talking about the human will and how human beings fight to exercise their will. You remember? And it is difficult for human beings to give up their will. They say, are we to trust in this guy, Moses, and die of thirst? Or do we take our destiny in our hands and decide what we want to do? We are dealing with a profound question that defines Christian discipleship. Namely, what is it? Can you read? Do we continue to trust God and risk dying, or do we trust our own judgment? Very critical. Very critical. And that is the question that arises in our minds each time we are tempted. The first Sunday of Lent, we dealt with temptation. Unfortunately, it was all reduced to sexual sin. But it is all sin. 1,001 sins we commit. The question that arises in our heart is, do we continue to trust God? Do I continue to trust God and lose favor and lose my good name and lose this and lose pleasure and lose power and lose money? Or do I trust my own judgment? In the desert, in the desire to quench their thirsts by whatever means, the Jews at Massa and Meribah failed the test of trust obedience. Every difficulty that a believer is confronted with becomes a test, isn't it? Every difficulty a believer is confronted with is what? A test. A test of faith, trust, and obedience. At the time of temptation, crisis, sickness, and acute deprivation, let me add provocation, let's say from our enemies, right? Many people do abandon their faith commitment and their relationship with God in order to quench some momentary thirst or satisfy the hunger of the moment. The hunger for vengeance, right? So you are provoked. And so there is hunger for vengeance. There is hunger to give it out that moment. So the temptation is, do I listen to God or do I submit to the passion of the moment? Esau sold his birthright forever. Why? To satisfy the hunger of the moment. And you can see the consequences forever, isn't it? Many of the things that define our lives are things we decided in a moment of indiscretion. Just think about it. A lot of things, moment of indiscretion. Take a decision, and then it defines the rest of our lives. Why is it like that? I don't know. A moment of indiscretion. Esau sold his birthright. Genesis 25, 29 to 34. Samson flung away his godly powers to satisfy the lustful thirst for a Philistine woman. Moment of indiscretion. And we could see the consequences for the rest of his life, right? Book of Judges, chapter 15, verse 4 to 22. Saul lost favor with God and was rejected as king over a moment of indiscretion and disobedience. War was coming. They wanted to go for war. They wanted to begin the march towards dealing with their enemies. And Samuel, the prophet, was nowhere to be found. And it is the prophet that is supposed to offer sacrifice. What did Saul do? Saul said, this prophet is wasting time. Saul decided to offer the sacrifice. The delay of Samuel was part of the plan of God. The delay of Samuel. And how often do we, you and I, do we recognize delays as part of God's plan? How often do we recognize delays as part of? I mean, in a country where religion is now about sharp, everything sharp, riches sharp, power sharp, everything sharp. In such an environment, delays are often not seen as possibly part of the plan of God. You're looking for work, it's not coming quickly, then that is the devil. So you deal with the situation sharp in your own way. But the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the God of Jesus Christ, time is in his hand. With God, there are no delays. There are no delays. Everything that happens, I am struggling to believe, and I hope I am growing in that belief, that everything that happens to me, good, bad, and ugly, is part of God's plan. If it happened to me, then it has to be part of his plan. If it is not part of his plan, then I would have been able to dodge it. But if it ends up happening to me, it's part of his plan. Can you turn to your neighbor? Don't touch your neighbor, as I said before. I used to say, touch your neighbor. Look at your neighbor. Smile at your neighbor and say, whatever is happening to you now, take it that is part of God's plan. Are there delays in your life now? Take it that is part of God's plan. And be at peace with it. God is able to transform all things unto good. Tell your neighbor. Including the good, the bad, or the ugly happening now. After Mass, I may be able to show you, to demonstrate how perhaps the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic may have, at the end of the day, something positive to teach the world. So, many of us today, like Esau, many of us like Saul, many of us like Solomon, do violate our covenant relationship with God in order to satisfy some momentary thirst, such as make some more money by any means, to grab that job or contract by any means. And in this country today, to grab contract by clean means is very hard, isn't it? Ask the contractors here. To grab any contract by clean means is very hard. And so, your friends will tell you, you better do what they say and grab that contract by any means. To have that political appointment by any means. And we are seeing it all around us, isn't it? To get that husband at all costs. Whatever you have to compromise in order to get that husband, so that this delay be removed. To get that girlfriend or boyfriend at any cost. to procure abortion and be free of that pregnancy, however grave the sin. Yesterday I was sharing with the friends. I hope someday to deal with the whole question of the fear of God. Told people, they say, with God all things are possible. That's what people say. But without fear of God, anything is possible. Without the fear of God, anything is possible. Our relationship with God is meant to be a matter of trust and obedience. Under circumstances of acute deprivation, which we summarize with the concept of hunger and thirst, right? When we're talking of hunger and thirst, know that it includes everything. Under situations of acute deprivation, Jesus said to the tempter in Matthew chapter 4, verse 1 to 11. 1, can you read? Man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. 2, do not put the Lord your God to the test. 3, him alone you must serve. Please, later today, I ask you to read that passage again, passage of Matthew chapter 4, verse 1 to 11, and know that it encapsulates everything about anything that can tempt us. The 3 areas that are called the key concupiscence of the human being. The area of the flesh, whether it is hunger, physical hunger or thirst, or sexual appetite, sexual passion, sensual appetites. That's one. The other area is the area of wealth, possession. Possession, including, by the way, having family, husband, wife, children. There are many Nigerians who think that when it comes to family, anything, to do anything is okay. I hope you know. In our traditional religion, anything you must do to have a son is okay. Do you recognize that? God's time, do you recognize that? With our traditional religion, there is nothing you can do to have a child that is wrong. Why? Because to have a child is the highest value. Is that the highest value for Christians? I want your answer. Is that the highest value for Christians? No. For Christians, well, to have a husband, to have a wife, to have children, and many children, male children, they are nice, they are high values, but they all amount to vanity of vanity. As long as we are not taking them out of this. We need to recognize, my problem is that many Nigerians who claim to be Christians have never sat down to compare and contrast. The answer, Mrs. Okwo answered. To compare and contrast the traditional African religion that my grandfathers did and the Christian religion. Many people have never sat down to compare and contrast. So we have continued, we have got into Christianity, and we are living the Christian religion with the African conceptual framework. It is the African thinking, the African traditional thinking that is behind our living the Christian life. Am I speaking grammar? This is the African traditional thinking, meaning the thinking behind the African traditional religion. The thinking behind the African traditional religion is what is behind the living of many Christian lives. And that is why we are not making progress. I insist that if you are going to make progress, you must sit down and say, look, my grandfather, my grandmother, they were people of the African traditional religion, and begin to list what were the values of that religion. Because every religion has its core values, isn't it? What were the core values of that religion? Then on the other paper you write, what are the core values of the Christian religion? You will discover that they are not the same. If they were the same, then there won't be two different religions. Victor, you're looking at me. You are doing the analysis in your mind now, right? Mm-hmm. So, if they were the same, there won't be two different religions. They are not the same. There are things that the traditional African religion valued very high, top highest value, which for Christianity is nothing but vanity. And my own analysis, I keep saying one of our problems in this society is the lack of critical social thinking. Yes? My own analysis is that many people are in the churches, but they have never done that analysis. They have never done that analysis. And so we have the problem that we have large hordes of people who say they are Christians, but the thinking behind the choices they make. Because you think you just make a choice. You don't just make a choice. There is some thinking. It's called conceptual framework. Conceptual framework that is behind the words I speak or the choices I make. So, possessions, which, like I said, is not just material wealth. Possessions also include having wife, having husband, having children. They are possessions. And I have constantly alluded to this, that unfortunately we are in a highly sexualized society. So when people look at the Catholic Reverend Father, all they are thinking is that it's not having sex or it's not supposed to have sex. They are forgetting the highest value that the Catholic priest is giving up. It is that possessing my own family. Do you understand? And why does the church insist on that? Part of the reason is to teach the world that the highest value of the society for a man or a woman to marry and have children, the church says, to show that there is something much more. So the priest is an example of a life where there will be no marriage or giving in marriage. So the priest symbolizes. And so, if somebody is dying because he's not married, it's to say, look, me, my life is not finished because I am not married. If somebody is dying because he doesn't have a child, look at me. I say, but you wanted to be a priest, but do you think I don't have an instinctive desire to propagate, to have children? Do you think I don't have? Simply because I decided to be a priest, you think I don't desire as a human being to propagate myself? Do you think I don't? It is to say, I have discovered something in Christ that is more than having my own children. I have discovered something in the eternal message of Jesus Christ that is more than having my own wife and children. And if you struggle to have a wife, if you struggle to have children and you don't succeed, what do you do as a Christian? Then you begin to say, well, there has to be something more. And you try to claim that something more. Next is power. The next area of human concupiscence is the pride of life. The desire to control people. Right? The desire to be above people, to dominate people, to control people. That's the next level. And you see the passion with which people, when you hear stories of people of power, how if it means a human being must die for them to get into power, they are ready. People who are older, they know that, isn't it? If it means to go and sacrifice a human being, there are people in this society that are ready. Those who first arrive in Abuja. Those who first arrived in Abuja know how many albinos disappeared in Abuja so that people will keep power. Those who first arrived in Abuja know how many cows were buried alive so that people will keep power. Human beings disappeared. When it comes to grabbing power, people are ready to do anything. And the unfortunate people are the ones that, can you imagine? People were sacrificed. People hunchback. I don't know which kind of a deity is looking for hunchback and looking for albino. People are doing incredible, unthinkable, callous, wicked things in order to grab power. Never mind, some of them say they are Christians, and after they grab power, they go to church to do Thanksgiving. But all kinds of things are happening behind the scene. Other people, maybe they had it before. They have thrown it away. It is time for us to begin to throw those things away. Even Christian organizations, people are often seeking power to be on top and are ready to do, maybe they are not sacrificing human beings, but they are ready to do some callous things, terrible things. Jesus also says in Matthew 16:25, what did he say? For anyone who wants to save his life will lose it, but anyone who loses his life for my sake will find it. The encounter with the Samaritan woman. The encounter with the Samaritan woman at the well is perhaps Jesus' most fascinating and most successful encounter. Jesus was tired from the journey and thirsty. The disciples have gone for food. And as he waits for them by the well, a woman comes along. This woman, who was supposed to be thirsty, Jesus, right? This woman was truly thirsty. She was more thirsty than Jesus. She was thirsty not only for water, but also for true love. It is her thirst for true love that is taking her all over the place. And I keep saying that the most promiscuous people in our society, it is because they are thirsty. They are thirsty for true love. Unfortunately, as they keep fetching from one fake love to the other, they don't recognize that they cannot get true love in any human being. She is thirsty for true love. She is thirsty for truth. That is why she was concerned about authentic worship. Where do we find authentic worship? She was thirsty for living water, for real life. She was thirsty for meaning, for purpose, and for salvation. She had been married 5 times, but up to the time of meeting Jesus, she had not found the love of her desire. She is now living with a man to whom she is not married. Now, take note. That clause in Matthew's gospel, except Matthew 19, except by unchastity, it applies to this woman. Meaning you are with a husband to whom you are not properly married. It is called unchastity. And such marriage can break. No problem, because it's not a marriage. I think I had explained sufficiently in this chapel. And this woman's case is an example. If you are living with a woman you are not properly married to, you are living with a man you are not properly married to, there is no problem. You can separate any day. In fact, you are supposed to separate. Yes. That is what is called, that is what Jesus meant, except in case of unchastity. So if you are living in unchastity, unchastity is a sin now, isn't it? Come out of it. But what do people now say? People say it means adultery. I say, go and study the original languages. Go and study the original languages. That English is handicapped. Study the original languages. There's a difference between fornication, people who are not properly married, and adultery, people who are properly married. You don't commit adultery unless you are properly married. Do you understand? At least one of the 2 people to be guilty of adultery must be married. If the 2 people are not married, it is what? Fornication. That's called unchastity. This woman had a profound thirst for life that was leading her to dead waters. What are the dead waters? Jumping from one man to the other. Unfortunately, there are many of us who are also going from one dead water to the other. She longed for true love and lasting happiness, but she was looking for that true love and lasting happiness in the wrong places. Just like many people here look for lasting happiness and true love in the wrong places. Let me tell your neighbor, smile to your neighbor and say, don't look for true love in the wrong places. Don't look for happiness, lasting happiness in the wrong places. There is only one place where you can get true love and lasting happiness. Jesus is the one that can offer that. Yes, this woman longed to be seen as a person and not an object. I did say, is it last Sunday or the previous one when we discussed sexual sins, that a situation where we are raising young people to, let's say young boys, to look at women only as sexual object, which is why if they see a cleavage of a woman, then she is to be raped. I said that kind of situation is sad, because what we are doing is objectifying the human being. You turn the human being to an object. And at the end of the day, even a woman who is making a lot of money for exposing her body, at the end of the day, she will not be happy, because it will occur to her that she has been made into an object, and that she is not loved for who she is. She is loved for what the makeup artist has succeeded in making of her. At the end of the day, when the law of gravity begins to apply. I mean, you can see my mom now. She was a beauty queen. I showed you the photo that time. The law of gravity has applied in every dimension. At the end of the day, when the law of gravity begins to apply, people feel distressed. People feel terrible to know that they have been valued only on account of something that is passing. Every human being will love to be appreciated for what sustains, not what is there today and not there tomorrow. Are you guys hearing? She wants to be seen as a person, not an object. But all she has gotten so far was what? Disappointment. The Samaritan woman was a deeply wounded person, as indeed many people in our generation are deeply wounded. Never mind all the fake smiles you see on social media, on Instagram. Instagram is the worst. You see all those smiles. Somebody and her husband have just fought, beating themselves black and blue at night. In the morning, she snaps photo. She takes her old photo of her smiling and puts on Instagram. Then you will look at it and say, people are so happy like this. You don't know that the person who even put it there. So this new media platforms have a way of promoting fake life and then making people sad, because you now look at those nice photos and then you look at yourself and say, how come me I'm not looking so nice? Everybody is looking so nice. Is it true? They are only faking it. Dr. Jekele and I were at a wedding yesterday. We saw eyelashes. Francis, you say you saw one that is up to 2 inches. Not 2 centimeters, 2 inches. We saw the work of makeup artists. But I am insisting that at the end of the day, nobody will like the fact that I was only appreciated on account of this. Every human being wants to be embraced for who she is and be embraced for that dimension that does not change. We are embraced and appreciated for the dimensions that change. No human being really likes it. Be careful about all the kind of things you post. If you must post your photo every day, post as you are every day. The good, the bad, and the ugly. so that the world will know, so that young people growing up that life is about good, bad, and ugly. What we are raising young people and giving them the impression that it is sugar in the morning and sugar in the afternoon and sugar in the evening. Is that true? So we are telling lies to our young people. And our young people, we only lead them to suicide. We only lead them to trauma because our young people are going to be distressed when they discover the truth that life is not such plastic things. The Samaritan woman was deeply wounded. Wounded by what? By sin and many broken relationships. Every time a relationship breaks, right? Whether it is relationship of friendship, relationship of husband and wife, and so on, parents and children, it leaves some wound. It leaves some what? Wound in the person. Those who have attended our trauma healing, psychotrauma healing course can appreciate that. Be careful. Don't go into intimate relationships too quick. Because you go into intimate relationships and you get wounded, those wounds don't heal quickly. They don't heal quickly. This woman knew that something was missing. Now, the weary stranger, the Jewish man Jesus, starts the discussion by asking for a drink. Give me a drink. And the woman protests. How come you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan woman, to give you a drink? But Jesus raises the discussion one step higher. The woman initiated the discussion at the level of their cultural differences and biases and prejudices. But Jesus went beyond that. And that is the challenge that we all have. All Christians are supposed to help in every circumstance you find yourself to raise the discussion. Oh, you go to somewhere and they say, Igbos don't trust Yorubas. The TV don't trust the Domas or the whatever. You can actually help to raise the level of the discussion. Jesus has challenged us to do that. Jesus says, if only you knew what God is offering and who is asking you for water, you will be the one to ask and he will give you living water. And the woman said, where's your bucket? Where's your bucket? You have no bucket. And the well is very deep. So, by the way, are you greater than our father Jacob that gave us this well? And Jesus begins his teaching on the living water. Whoever drinks the water from this well will be thirsty. But anyone who drinks the water that I shall give will never be thirsty again. The water that I shall give will turn into springs welling up to eternal life. Even though she still didn't understand yet the teaching of Jesus, she said, Oga, give me that water so that I may never be thirsty and I won't need to be coming to this well again. Jesus now delves into her personal life. Now, the discussion is now becoming personal. Go and call your husband and come back here. And the woman said, I don't get husband. And Jesus said, you are right. Even though you have been married to 5, you have had 5, the one you are living with now is not your husband. Now, I go back to what I said about unchastity. She's living, we don't know how long, 5 years, 10 years she's been living with this one. Jesus says, it's not your husband. Now, even if she had had 2, 3, 4 children for this man, Jesus says, it's not your husband. Do you understand? So all she is doing with the man is what? Fornication. If the man had not been married and she is not married, what are they doing? Fornication. That will not be adultery. Unless the man is married. With this revelation, the woman recognizes that she is before a special person, not just any Jew. She says, I see, sir, that you are a prophet. And she launches into a major subject of controversy between Samaritans and Jews, which is the proper place to worship. And Jesus answers is that the hour is coming when neither what you Samaritans say nor what the Jews say will apply. The hour is coming when those who worship God will worship in spirit and in truth. It won't be Whether it is in Kado or in Jabi, that's not the issue. The woman responds, I know the Messiah, the Christ is coming. And when he comes, all this controversy, when the Messiah comes, he will teach us everything. And Jesus Christ says, look, I, who is speaking to you, I am he. And does this sound familiar? When Moses says, who do I tell, chapter 3 of Exodus, who do I tell the Jews that sent me? And he says, I am who I am. The woman stands there before this person who says, I am he. The woman knows a lot about the Messiah. And when this guy says, I am he, the woman stood there how? Dumbfounded, perplexed, overjoyed. All of a sudden, she has met the one person who could give her all she ever longed. All of a sudden. Something phenomenal happened at that moment. Once Jesus Christ says, I am he. You mean I am before? You remember the case of Isaiah, Isaiah chapter 6? Isaiah chapter 6, Isaiah was in the temple. And all of a sudden he discovered that he was before the Almighty God. And say, who am I? Who am I? I'm from a people, I am a man of unclean lips, from a people of unclean lips, and I have seen how I will die. Isaiah chapter 6. This woman had the same experience. This is what is called an encounter, a theophany, meaning a vision of God. All of a sudden, the emptiness inside her has been filled. All of a sudden, her wounds have been healed. You know, I keep saying here that we all need to pray for an encounter. And when we have that encounter, we go home different. We don't go home the same. All of a sudden, she has found true love, and her life now has meaning. All of a sudden, she has found salvation. And may each one of us have this kind of encounter. It happens all of a sudden. It can happen gradually. May our encounter here, our efforts at worship here, may it help each one of us to gradually have an encounter with the Lord. My soul is thirsting for you, Lord. When can I enter? When can I enter? When can I enter and see your face? I say, my soul is thirsting for you, Lord. When can I enter? When can I enter? When can I enter and see your face? Like the deer that yearns for running stream, so my soul is yearning. So my soul is yearning. So my soul is yearning for you, my God. Like the watchman waiting for daybreak, so my soul is waiting. So my soul is waiting. So my soul is waiting for you, my God. Heavenly Father, we thank you, we praise you, we glorify your holy name. Thank you for your love and your goodness. Thank you for this wonderful message about the woman at the well and what you want to teach us. You want to teach us that it is we who are thirsty, and that we have been looking for solution to our thirst in the wrong waters, in the wrong places. Lord, guide us along our journey towards the living water. Guide us along the way of our journey to you, the one that can satisfy our profound thirst. Many among us have been weeping, Lord. You have promised to wipe away our tears. Many among us have been suffering all kinds of pain, deprivation, distress, trauma. You are the wonderful healer. By your stripes we have been healed. By your wounds we have been made whole. Lord, living water, bread of life, be the solution to our problem. In Jesus' name we pray.